All right. What's up, man?
What's going on?
Not much. Glad to be here. Dr. Wynn, this is
Benjamin Boykin. I'm the biology teacher slash IPC teacher slash coach at Groesbeck High School. And I teach mostly 9th and 10th graders with a couple seniors mixed in there.
so we're going to talk a little bit about how the science department works here and a little bit how his classroom is run and versus how mine is ran and just the differences and similarities. So first things first, when y'all have y'all's science department meeting, first of all, who's y'all's department head?
Susie Waller's our department head. She's our chemistry teacher. She leads all our science teachers. Myself and another teacher are the only ones that actually share subjects and curriculum. We all teach our own subjects. We have chemistry teacher, physics teacher. Like I said, myself and another teacher teach biology. And so when we get together, it is a collaboration, but it's more of an overall collaboration. We collaborate more of planning styles, testing times, things that need to happen as far as paperwork and budgeting goes. We're left with a little bit of freedom. Here's what we need, and here's what we need to order, and here's what we have to work with. And that's some of the things we talk about at the beginning, and we talk about halfway through about, well, what are we going to need for next year? But a lot of our meetings at this point of the year, halfway through the year, when we meet, is more about alleviating the stress level, if you will. We meet to kind of socialize more. Now, it is a professional environment. We're not in there just playing and everything else, but we're in there talking about not students, but talking about what are some issues we've had, what are some things that maybe some other teachers have done in the past, what are some activities maybe that we've had success with that have helped our students grasp topics. So a lot, and that's more of a small school mentality where most teachers teach their own subject. So it's a little different than some bigger schools.
Okay, sweet. I like the fact that you guys collaborate together and come up with y'all's decisions as a whole, because studying the things that I'm studying, trying to become a principal, a lot of what I'm studying to pass the test is about collaboration and involving as many people and get their input for the best outcome for the students. So I like the fact that y'all do that as a group. So moving on to your classroom, thanks by the way for going straight into my next question, which was about how your department meeting goes. But so more about your classroom. I'm at DAP, so a lot of my environment deals with discipline and correcting behavior and encouraging good behavior and trying to eliminate all the negative behavior that got them where they were. So how does that look in your classroom, being that you have on average
25 to 28 kids roughly. Yeah.
So, and my average is about 2. So that's something totally different where I have 2 extremely somewhat negative behaved students in my class, where you have a mixture of all of them. So say you got your one student that just gets it right 1 out of 100 times. What do you say to that guy first?
For me, they haven't got to the point of if they're seeing you, they've done something really bad.
Yeah, for sure.
And so for me, I'm trying to prevent that from happening. We're with a lot of education, we're doing a more preventative role of along with planning for testing as well as discipline. They kind of intermingle amongst the two. With, let's say, particular students. Okay, we'll talk about my biggest class. My biggest class has 28 in it right now, and it is a challenge. First thing I always try and do is I try and pinpoint the students that are struggling with academics and then struggling maybe emotionally or physically, with outbursts and whatnot. The kids that need a little more attention. And I try and place them in certain positions around the room with students that can alleviate that stress and assist them. One thing I've done in the past is, I sit them closer to me, so that if they need anything. But one thing I found this year is I have a class with quite a few students that need that extra attention, and I can't disperse them out like I've done in the past. And so it's one of those things where I have to pay more attention. I can't, I don't want to say I don't give them as much freedom, but I keep an eye on them more, even on the simple activities of like card sorts and partner work, because the opportunities for distractions and misbehavior are greater because there's more discipline oriented children, if you will.
Yeah, for sure.
The kids that I've got generally are not, are not the kids that have been to DAEP yet. In my biology classes especially. Now they might have when they were younger, but most of them haven't, and they haven't reached the threshold to where they need to be. And so I'm trying to literally just cut off the I don't know what they're trying to prevent any of that from happening. And some of the things we'll do, like I said, with the seating, but some other things I do is with my crowd control. So, for example, when we get too noisy, depending on my type of student, it varies. So if they start talking too much, okay, some classes I've had, I can go elementary and I'll count. And it depends on the class. Some I can get absolutely quiet and they'll stop in a heartbeat because they know, oh, Coach Boyd can stop talking, something's up. And some I've had to literally walk and sit next to them for them to recognize what is going on.
Yeah.
Because every kid is different, and you have to focus and you have to identify these things really early on. Otherwise, you won't be able to catch up. If you're trying to identify by the time December is rolling around, the second semester is too late.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I like the fact that you go next to them. I was always when I was in my student teaching, I haven't ever been in a classroom setting such as this. I've only been at DAEP, but when I was in my student teaching, that was my favorite, to just go stand next to the person that's not doing what they're supposed to do. I mean, just putting your presence in their personal space sometimes alleviates a lot of the distraction. So in my class, I mean, they're already there. So they get one warning. I have a chart to where if they're not following teacher instruction, they have to have above 80 points for the day. If they get below that 80 point baseline or whatever, that day they get an X. That means that they don't get, it's just a bad day. It's a need improvement day. And if say they're on level 2 is the highest. You get all the privileges. You get all your choices for lunch. You get extra break time, extra restroom breaks, things like that when you're on level 2 at DAEP. But if you have 2 days of need improvement, which if you have a 79 and below, you go all the way back down to the compliance level. Compliance level is you get nothing. I pick everything for you. You get basic lunch. You get no extra time on break. And it's just a little just bland. You make your way through the day, and and if you gotta have 5 consecutive days of 80 or above to get back to level 1. So you're completely starting over. You don't even get to go back to level 2 if you go all the way back down to compliance level. So I have a little more, I guess, leeway there because they're already there. They can't talk anyway, so there's no reason for them to be loud or even get to the point where I have to tell them to stop. But it did get to that point earlier this year where 2 of my students just felt like they could just have a conversation outside of us telling them to be quiet. So we had them after school detention. So they had 30 minutes after school. So we let GAEP out at 3:45 each day. So they had to stay until 4:15. But one of them decided to continue to talk, and so we added another 15 minutes. So not only were the student upset, but the mom was upset because she had to wait on him to get out, you know? So I have a little more, I guess you guys have after school detention here
We
too.
do.
So that's
You
something
gotta use the parents sometimes
Yeah.
to help alleviate. Sometimes, unfortunately, if the parents are irritated with the situation, sometimes it helps you out because they don't want to wait for their kid. They don't want to have to do the extra things sometimes when their kid gets in trouble. But I generally don't try and detentions are not my first resort. First we're gonna if there's some kind of issue, we're gonna talk about it. I'd say at least once a week I pull a kid out in the hall and we talk.
Mhm.
Okay, I have sent a kid to the office 0 times this year. To me, that their kids are they're gonna slip and they're gonna have moments of weakness because that's their character. They're learning.
Yeah.
I've had kids that have accidentally slipped a curse word just because it's their vernacular that they use
On a daily
basis outside of here. And if I could follow along and wrote that kid up, but it's not gonna do that kid any good because the kid's not learning. If the kid's out of class, he's not learning or she's not learning.
Mhm.
And so to me, I'll go outside and talk to them. Hey, let's fix this, make sure it doesn't happen again. Now, if it becomes a regular problem, then we'll take it to the next step, next level, calling parents, and then sending referrals home or sending referrals to the office if we need to. But generally, a lot of times the kids just need a second in the hall. We'll fix it. We're good to go. Sometimes when they get corrected, they get attitude. I send them in the hall. To me, getting them away from their environment helps because a lot of times they're just going to try and show off for their friends, and then once you get them one-on-one, they kind of break down and they're like, okay, well, I'm really sorry, this is not me. I'm just showing out for my friends.
Yeah.
So you got to get that one-on-one time. You got to know your kids, and that's 99% of the game is knowing your kids. And your students.
And that's the biggest advantage I have is once they're with me, their friends are no longer there to help them. Given the situation I just had, they just happened to get along. But thanks for that, man. It really gives me an insight on what you go through compared to what I go through. Another thing that I do want to talk about is your labs. Man, you got a bunch of stuff in here. There's no way I could have this much stuff in that room and not have anything happen. What is a daily, when you set your labs up, what is your safety precaution? Like, what do you tell these kids and how do you go through it?
I have to preface beforehand, the day before, a reminder, hey, we got lab tomorrow. I have to let them know what safety equipment they need to be. Are we wearing closed-toed shoes tomorrow? Do we need to make sure we have our hair pulled back for tomorrow? Do we need to make sure that maybe we're not wearing our best clothes? Maybe we're using, for example, we worked with milk and food coloring in my IPC class yesterday. Well, milk and food coloring don't seem like a lot, but it will stain your clothes for the day. So some kids didn't want to wear their best clothes for that period. They put a different shirt on or whatever. So I've got to talk to them beforehand, let them know because they're kids, they forget. I've got a daily calendar, but unless they look at it 20 times, they probably forget every day.
So y'all's labs, do y'all talk about these in y'all's department meetings, or does every teacher's lab, are they supposed to look the same?
The setup or the way we do labs?
Just the setup and how they do them. Or when y'all go in y'all's department meetings and just say, hey, y'all all teach different levels of science.
We teach different subjects, so it is a little different. But we do take responses from different people. We take advice from different people. Just for example, Coach Sloan that's next door to me, he also teaches biology, so that's helpful to me. He may have done a lab a different way, and it gives me different things. But Ms. Flatt, who's our physics teacher, she's offered me some different things with helping with my IPC class because she teaches similar topics with physics, and so. I may not do it exactly as they do it. I have to adjust and fit formats for my kids, first and foremost. But yeah, we talk about them. Especially in the very beginning, this summer, we were up here this summer in our planning meeting, and we went through and we mapped out all the labs we're planning to do to make sure that the one can get the equipment to, that they're safe, and making sure we're not repeating. We don't want to do the same lab multiple times because the kids get kind of bored with it.
Yeah.
But my lab setup's pretty basic. They know the day before when they come in, they pick up. Every day I have a table where they pick up paperwork. The first thing they do is look over there for any lab paperwork or any paperwork in general. And if there's not something over there, the kids almost panic now because I've got them trained.
Yeah.
If there's not something there, they ask.
And you say that, I came in here one day to sit in for you, and they didn't see anything right there. It's just like, what are we doing today? He usually has this out, so I thought that was pretty cool. That is actually something I talked to my lab's observation was about our daily routine, and that is something that I talked to the last group that I met with, was making sure they got in a daily routine. So it's good to know that you do that.
The kids will say they don't want structure, but they crave structure more than anything else.
Yeah.
And they need to have that structure, and they need to have the routine. Now, I'm not saying do the same thing over and over and over again.
Definitely.
For my lab, it may be varied. For example, our lab we did 2 days ago, or yesterday. Kids knew they came in, they picked up their lab papers, and I said, hey, all right, we're not going to need goggles today, but we will need aprons. They went, got their aprons on, sat back down their desk, and then we went over the lab. They know, right now I've got them seated in groups, and those are their lab groups when we go to the back lab table. But sometimes when I have them seated in rows, I have the desk numbered and say, okay, well, these are your number groups. You go to your number table that corresponds with that. And so by now they know my routine and what I want. They go to their lab table. They're supposed to put their papers down and focus on me. Sometimes I have to remind them. Sometimes they do it great. Like I said, they are teenagers, so sometimes they have a tendency to completely forget the instructions they know, and sometimes they do great. Sometimes they go back there, they set their stuff down, and they're attentive. If it's something that catches their attention, they generally will focus more. If it's something that they don't see very much of, there's not a visual cue at the beginning, they kind of tend to be more rowdy and unfocused, and that's when you have to reel them back in. But they all know lab cleanup. They have to wash everything out. They have to clean everything off. The tables are clean. They're not allowed to leave their table until their tables are cleaned up. Their lab setup is clean. If that means they have to stay a few minutes after the bell to get the stuff clean, it's their responsibility to get their lab areas clean.
Sweet.
So yeah, those are some of the basic things that we do as far as routine.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks for giving me a rundown on y'all's department. I like how y'all collaborate, and I like how cohesive y'all are, and y'all work together, bounce each other's ideas and different methods off of each other. But I think we're good, man. I appreciate it.
No problem.
Get this stopped and we'll be done.